Hello, Psychology 201 students. Welcome to your tutorial on graphing using Excel. This is your lab instructor, Natasha. The first thing we want to do after we open Excel is to enter our data into a blank workbook. Let's say that we were hired by Dining Services to determine which dessert they served was most popular, and they gave us data showing the amount of each dessert taken from the Harbor's dessert bar at Blanchard on a Thursday evening. So I'm going to show you one way of setting up the spreadsheet. First, let's pick a cell. It doesn't matter where you start entering your data. And let's enter the names of the different desserts in one row. So the first choice was banana crunch pudding. Then we can tab over to the next cell and enter the next option, which was eclairs. Then the next choice was vegan yellow cupcakes. And then the final choice was the double chocolate chip loaf. Now underneath this, we can enter the data points for the number of each dessert that was taken. So in the first example, there's 327 desserts of the puddings that were taken, 572 eclairs, 876 cupcakes, and 671 loaves. So that's one way of entering your data points. Another way is to enter the variables in rows. So here we could enter the puddings here, then the eclairs, then the cupcakes, and then the loaves, and enter the corresponding data points this time in the row adjoining this first row. The column. So in this case, you do the same data points. So 327, 572 eclairs, 876, and 671. Okay. It doesn't matter which way you enter it, as long as it makes sense to you. You're going to be highlighting the information that you're interested in. So in this case, we're interested, let's use the way that we entered the data the first time. So we're going to left click on the cell that we're interested in and drag until all 8 cells that we entered data into are highlighted. Now we can go up to where it says insert, and you can see one of the options is recommended charts. If you hit this, you'll see that there are different options of ways of displaying this information in a chart form. But let's cancel out of this because we know that this is nominal data, so one of the ways we can show this is using a bar graph. So next to where it says recommended charts, you can see an icon that looks like a bar graph. Let's click that. Then it gives us different options of different types of charts. So let's just use the first one, which is a clustered column. When we click that, we can see already that Excel makes a chart that looks pretty good. But we wouldn't want to submit a chart that looks like this to a professional journal or put it on a poster. So let's change some things around. One thing you'll notice right away is that the chart title does not have a name that makes sense given our data. So what might we call this? Maybe desserts taken from Harvest Bar? Okay. Now, let's say something that you know a chart should have is axes titles, right? So if we click into this graph, you can see on the right there's a button called Chart Elements that looks like a green add sign. If you click on that, you'll see all of these different options come up. So we'll want to add axes titles, so we'll click that. Let's say we wanted to remove the grid lines because we didn't like how that looked. We could unclick that. And maybe we wanted to label how many exactly desserts were taken. We could put some data labels on. Okay, so now there are axes titles, but again, this doesn't have any information. This is just the generic word axis title. So what we're going to want to do is click into the title to actually give it a name, right? So what does this represent on the y-axis? This is the number of desserts taken. So we can just say number of desserts. And then the axis title on the x-axis tells us the name of the different types of desserts. So we can just call it desserts. Okay. Other things that we can do to it to make it look more visually appealing, we can left click to activate the axis title. And then we can see there's options of changing the font. So maybe we want to change this, say, to Arial. we could do that. We could change the color of the title. Maybe we want to make it in dark orange. Then we can actually change the colors of the bars by, if you double click a particular bar, it will activate just that single bar. And then we can left click on that to change the fill. So maybe we wanted to make eclairs this kind of yellow color. You could play around and make each bar a different color if you wanted to. So you could really get into playing with the different options to see how you can change this graph to be more aesthetically pleasing. So that's a bar chart, but let's also look into how you would make a, if we're going to be working with longitudinal data. So let's say we wanted to measure the rainfall, and we collected samples of rain outside of the Talcott Greenhouse over the summer. And we wanted to measure the rain from June through September to see which month had the most rain or if there were any trends. So let's enter first the data points in a similar way on the spreadsheet. So you can either start a brand new spreadsheet. If you wanted to, you could just start entering data points down here, and then it'll add another chart once we highlight that data. Let's say you wanted to paste this into your Word document. You were satisfied with this. I'm personally not satisfied with this yet, but let's say this is how you wanted to put this into a Microsoft Word document. You could right click and then hit copy. And then if you had a blank Word document or your lab document, you could hit Control V just to paste the chart there. But so let's say we did take this. We don't want this chart anymore. We can delete that just by hitting delete. And then we could either erase all of this data, or let's say maybe we wanted to try making a different chart later. We want to leave that up there. Now we can just enter the new data for the rainfall graph. So here's the data that we received from the Talcott Greenhouse. We had the months of June, July, August, and September. And the amount in inches of rainfall in June, there's 3.22 inches. In July, there was 3.06 inches. In August, there's 3.37 inches. And in September, there was 3.47. Again, we're going to want to left click and drag to include all of the data points, and then go to Insert. And this time, since it's longitudinal data, we know that we won't want a bar chart. We're going to want to be looking at a line chart. So here there's an icon that says Insert Line or Area Chart. Let's click on that. Again, it gives us different options of line charts. Let's do the 2D line, but let's add some markers. And this will show us the individual data points. Okay, so right away, there's something that's a little bit misleading about this graph. What do you notice? When you look at the axes, you can see that the y-axis does not start at 0. So why might we want to change this to a 0? Let's think about if we're looking at just a portion of the data, it looks like the changes between the months are pretty dramatic. So maybe if you're looking at this, you would think, oh, I don't need to buy an umbrella until September. But when you think about it, these are really just, the difference in inches is not that big. So let's say we could click right into the chart, and where it says axis options, we could go down by left clicking and where it says format axis. You can see now over on the right hand side there's different options. So right now for the bounds, the minimum bounds, it says 2.8. That's where the y-axis starts on the chart. Let's change that to 0. So we can enter 0 and then hit enter. You can see now that the chart looks very different, right? Okay, so what else are we going to want to do? We can click back into the chart. We can X out of the format area here. Again, use this chart elements button to add some axes titles here. And this time, what are we going to want to label the axis title? Let's call it something like rainfall in inches, because we want people who look at the graph to know what kind of units we measured in. And then for the axis titles, we can call this the months. Okay. Additionally, we'll want to change the chart title, and we could call this something like rainfall outside Talcott. So now let's say you want to change the color of the line because you don't like this light blue color. If you double click on the line, you can activate these different data points. And then on the right-hand side of your screen where it says Format Data Series, you can click this first icon that says Fill and Line. Right now, the automatic color is this light blue color, but you can change it. Let's say you wanted to make it dark red. You could click that and that would change all of the line. The markers you see would still be this light blue color, so you can also choose to change those different colors of the markers. You know, you can move into, let's say, a darker blue. You could do that, or you could end up just wanting to leave them the same. It doesn't really matter as long as you think it looks aesthetically pleasing. There's not one right color that a graph should be, but certainly by playing around with it, you could see what types of combinations might look appealing and which ones might look like you just kind of threw it together last minute. So the purpose of the lab this week is to give you a chance to explore the different graphing functions within Excel. Like the other software that we use in this course, Excel is a very powerful package and has lots of different options. So we want to give you a chance to explore it so that you feel comfortable, not just within this course, but as you move on through the psychology and education department or within other majors, being able to have some familiarity with graphing in Excel. So we encourage you to consider playing around in Excel before coming to lab this week so you can explore these different graphing functions and it won't all be brand new once you come to lab. But until next time, remember, don't be mean, be above average.